What happens to your financial situation when a medical condition prevents you from working? Insurance specialist Karine Orser joins us today to explain why disability insurance can protect your wealth. Karine, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Sybil. Great to be here.
So you've been in the insurance industry for close to 2 decades already. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of things and have a lot of wisdom to share with our viewers. For today, I wanted to focus on the topic of disability insurance. Why is it needed?
Well, I think the biggest thing with disability is out of all the insurance, we can protect our house, we can protect our car, but what about protecting our biggest asset? So I think for every family, every person, every Canadian, their biggest asset is absolutely their income. That's what provides for everything. So sometimes we have house insurance, but we don't protect our biggest asset, which is the ability to make income. And so to me, disability, if you can't work, you can't bring in that income and you're not covered, then what can you pay for, right? Like all those bills are going to add up. And, if you had to make a choice between losing your house and losing your income,
but I don't want to lose either of those.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. But, for sure. And, but most people would say, well, if I have my income, I can buy another house. Right.
And you can still put food on your table because everybody needs to eat.
Yeah,
but when you're unable to work and you don't have that income coming in, people then do have to start selling assets, whether like it's their house, like you say, or dipping into their retirement fund. What type of implications would that have on people's future?
So that's a really big one. And I know, when we're younger, we don't think about this stuff, but I think what market this really attracts is, those people in their 50s that are still working. And they're usually the couples that, the kids are out of the house, maybe they're, past university, they kind of go, they look at their life insurance, they cancel that, they don't really need it anymore, they don't see a ton of debt. But if you're still working, usually you still have a need for disability. So what happens is, some of these couples are, we don't need it, or they leave their nice executive position to go do some consulting and don't always get that disability to go along with that. And what happens is those last 15, 10 years before retirement, we find is when these, a lot of Canadian couples are really, really starting to put money away. They're trying to play catch up. For all those years they had their kids and they were, weren't able to save quite as much. Now they're playing catch up. Well, what does that look like? If you're putting $50,000 a year and 10 years before retirement, you now can't work, that's about $500,000 impact.
Yes, and people hadn't saved that much. They're not planning that far in advance. Now, a lot of people do have disability coverage through their employer. Not everybody does. And if you're a business owner, you won't necessarily. You need to buy your own. What does disability income cover? Because it's not necessarily going to replace the whole amount that you're used to making when you're working, is it?
Right. Honestly, it all depends. Everybody's plan is completely different. If you're a higher income earner, sometimes you don't have as much income covered. And it's really important to see not only the amount. So a lot of times we look at, I've got, $7,000 of disability. You know what? If something happens, we can live with that. I have $5,000. Yep, I did my budget. We're good. Sometimes you got to look at the definitions. So a lot of times it's the first 2 years, it will cover you for your occupation, but then after those 2 years, it's any occupation.
Oh, that's a big difference because your occupation, you may be a senior executive or have a high position within a company, but any occupation, am I right in thinking if I can flip burgers after 2 years, maybe mentally I'm not there to be an executive anymore, I may not have any coverage.
And group insurance is a little trickier. The claims can be a little bit more difficult than an individual-owned policy. An individual-owned policy is going to have a stronger definition, stronger contract. And what's tricky with disability, especially as an advisor, is, meet clients that say, I have disability, I pay $13 a month. Well, right away, I'm really worried, right?
That's too cheap.
Cheaper is not always better, right? If me and you, Sybil, are going skydiving, I'm going for the most expensive parachute, just saying, So same thing with disability. It's your parachute. It's really going to be catching you if you can't work, if you can't do your job. So sometimes we can look at the definitions within your group plan and either augment that or at least know what you're covered for.
Okay, and I think that's the key thing there, Karen, is our viewers, I want them to walk away from today's segment double checking what kind of disability coverage you have in place today, read the fine print, and review it with a professional. And not sure if you have enough coverage? We have a disability calculator available on thewealthylife.com. Karen, this has been great. Fabulous having you here today. Thank you for sharing this information.